Deep within an ancient forest, hidden beneath a veil of soft blue mist, lay Eldorf, a village of witches and wizards. Here, magical beings lived peacefully, mastering their spells and protecting nature. Today was a special day, the ceremony of the enchanted broomstick. Every young witch who turned 10 would receive their first broomstick, a symbol of their journey into the magical world. Among the children gathered in the village square stood Arya, a bright-eyed girl with deep blue hair that shimmered like the night sky. Her heart pounded with excitement as Madame Celine, the head witch, stepped onto the platform. "Children," Madame Celine announced in her calm, commanding voice. "Today marks an important step in your journey. The broomstick that chooses you will be your lifelong companion. Treat it with care, for it holds great power." With a wave of her hand, several broomsticks lifted off from a stone pedestal, hovering in the air like birds about to take flight. One by one, they flew towards their destined owners, each child catching theirs with joy and pride. Arya watched eagerly as a dark brown broomstick approached her. It floated gracefully before her, waiting. With a smile, she reached out to grasp it. But suddenly, the broomstick jerked away. It shot up into the sky and hovered far above her head. The square fell silent. Every other child had received their broomstick, except Arya. "What's happening?" she stammered, eyes wide with confusion. "Strange," Madame Celine murmured, stepping forward to examine the broomstick. Just then, the broomstick glowed with a golden light, and an ancient symbol appeared on its handle. "This is," Madame Celine gasped. "The mark of the prophecy." "Prophecy," Arya repeated, completely baffled. The head witch turned to her with a serious expression. "Arya, you have been chosen for an important mission. Your broomstick will not accept you until that mission is complete." Arya swallowed hard. A mission? But she was only a novice witch. The broomstick continued to hover, as if waiting for something. "What must I do?" she asked hesitantly. Madame Celine sighed and reached for an ancient black leather-bound book. She handed it to Arya. "Find the answer within these pages, and you will learn what your destiny holds." Arya clutched the book, her mind swirling with uncertainty. What mission awaited her? Why had the broomstick chosen her? Arya sat in Madame Celine's ancient library, surrounded by towering bookshelves filled with old spellbooks. The glow from the enchanted lanterns cast a soft light over the mysterious book that had been given to her. She ran her fingers over its black leather cover, stitched with golden thread. It felt strange, almost alive. As she opened the first page, ancient handwriting slowly appeared, as if an invisible force was writing it before her eyes. "When the blue moon rises, the chosen witch must embark on a journey to find the stone of the golden phoenix. If she fails, the realm of magic shall fall into ruin." Arya's heart pounded as she read the words again. Was this the mission she had to fulfill? "What is the stone of the golden phoenix?" she asked. Madame Celine sighed. "It is a powerful magical artifact said to maintain balance in our world. But no one knows where it is, and no witch has ever seen it." Arya furrowed her brows. If it's so important, why hasn't anyone tried to find it? "They have," Madame Celine said grimly. "But none have ever returned." Arya swallowed hard. This was more dangerous than she had imagined. She glanced back at the book and noticed that a new message had appeared. "The key of the wind shall guide you." "What is the key of the wind?" she asked. "It is a magical object that reveals the path to the stone," Madame Celine explained. "But the problem is it is hidden within the Forbidden Forest." Arya's eyes widened. The Forbidden Forest. The forest was infamous for its dangers, filled with mysterious creatures and magic so unpredictable that even skilled witches struggled to survive. "You understand now that this mission will not be easy," Madame Celine said seriously. "But if you are afraid, you may choose to refuse. No one will blame you." Arya clenched her fists. She was afraid, but deep inside, she knew the stone of the golden phoenix might be the key to protecting the magical world. Taking a deep breath, she lifted her chin. "I will go." Madame Celine gave a small nod. "Since you have made your decision, prepare yourself well. You must leave at dawn tomorrow." Arya felt her heart pounding. This would be her first great adventure, and it might change her destiny forever. The golden rays of dawn painted the sky as Arya fastened her satchel, filled with a water flask, herbs, and a small spellbook. On her shoulder, Nemo, her tiny enchanted owl, hooted softly, as if trying to comfort her. "Are you ready?" Madame Celine asked, her voice calm but filled with concern. "I'm ready," Arya replied, though her heart was pounding. "Then follow the wind's light, cross the misty river, and you shall find the path to the forbidden forest." Taking a deep breath, Arya stepped forward, following an ancient trail long forgotten by time. The moment Arya stepped into the forbidden forest, she noticed something eerie: silence. No birds chirped, no insects buzzed. The air was thick with an ancient magic, swirling like invisible threads around her. She followed the faint blue glow of the wind's light, which guided her through the twisted trees, leading her to a hidden cave nestled beneath thick vines. "The key of the wind must be here," Arya murmured, stepping cautiously inside. But suddenly, a dark shadow burst forth from the cave's depths. Glowing red eyes pierced through the darkness, and a deep growl rumbled like distant thunder. "You dare trespass into my domain." Arya took a step back, her pulse quickening. "To claim the key, you must first pass my trial." A massive figure emerged from the shadows, a shadow dragon. Its crimson eyes locked onto her, its presence overwhelming. "What kind of trial?" Arya asked, trying to keep her voice steady. The dragon let out a low, rumbling chuckle. "You must choose between two fates." Before her, two visions appeared. The first, the key of the wind, floated within a golden glow, shimmering as if calling her to take it. The second, a small enchanted squirrel, was trapped inside a cage of dark energy. The cage was shrinking, and if no one saved it, the tiny creature would be crushed. "You may take the key and walk away," the dragon said in a deep, echoing voice. "Or you may waste your time saving the creature and risk losing everything."
Arya hesitated.
She had come all this way for the key. It was the only way to find the stone of the golden phoenix. But could she really let the squirrel perish before her eyes? She clenched her fists. Her heart already knew the answer. "I will save it," Arya shouted, raising her wand toward the cage. She cast a spell of pure light, forming glowing rings of energy. A burst of blue magic shattered the dark prison, and the squirrel leaped free, chittering in joy. Suddenly, the key of the wind floated toward her on its own. "What?"
Arya gasped in surprise.
The shadow dragon let out a low, approving laugh. "You have chosen wisely." Its massive form began to fade, turning into wisps of shadow. "Compassion is the true power of a great witch." With those final words, the dragon vanished entirely. The key of the wind settled into Arya's hands. She stared at it, realization washing over her. She had passed the trial. "Let's go, Nemo," Arya said, turning to her owl. "We have a mission to complete." Clutching the key tightly, she stepped out of the cave, ready for her next destination, the cursed city of Eldorf. After leaving the cave of the shadow dragon, Arya held the key of the wind tightly in her hands. Determination burned within her. She now understood the true importance of her mission. "Next, Eldorf City," she murmured, following an overgrown path covered in vines. Nemo, her enchanted owl, let out a soft hoot of warning. The sky slowly turned a dull gray, and a chilling breeze swept through the air. Something was wrong. As Arya stepped into the city limits, her heart pounded. The sight before her stole her breath away. The entire city was shrouded in gray. Buildings lay in ruins, the streets were entangled with dark vines, and worst of all, every citizen had been turned to stone. "What happened here?"
Arya whispered.
She approached a statue of an elderly woman, her hand reaching out as if pleading for help. Even in stone, her eyes were filled with terror. This must be the work of dark magic. Suddenly, a strong wind blew past, carrying a whispering voice. "You are too late." Arya gasped and spun around. No one was there. "Who's there?" she asked cautiously. I am Selena, the spirit of this city. Before her, a soft blue light flickered, forming the image of a woman in an old witch's robe. Selena, the guardian witch of Eldorf. You're a spirit? Arya asked. Yes, I've been trapped here since the curse was unleashed, Selena said sorrowfully. You have come in search of the stone of the golden phoenix, haven't you?
Arya nodded. Yes.
Do you know where it is? Selena nodded in return. It is hidden within the Tower of Night, but you cannot enter until the curse is broken. How do I break it? Selena turned toward the city's center. You must find the Shard of Light, the only object capable of reflecting the dark magic of the Shadow Sorcerer. Where is it? The shard was hidden deep within the illusionary forest, Selena said grimly. But I must warn you, that forest is filled with traps and deceptive creatures. No one has ever entered without facing great danger. The illusionary forest. Arya swallowed hard. She knew it was one of the most treacherous places in the magical realm. But I must go. She gripped the key of the wind. I will find a way to save this city. Selena gazed at her with admiration. You are truly courageous. May the light of magic guide you. Before Arya could reply, Selena's spirit slowly faded away, leaving only the cold wind behind. Arya lifted her eyes toward the path ahead. Her mission was far from over. Let's go, Nemo, to the illusionary forest. Arya stepped deeper into the illusionary forest. The towering trees twisted unnaturally, as if they were alive. A thick mist rolled along the forest floor, making the path ahead barely visible. Nemo, her enchanted owl, hooted in warning. If you enter, you will never find your way out. A whisper floated through the wind, sending chills down Arya's spine. She knew the forest was infamous for its deceptive magic. Many who had entered had never found their way back. I have no choice, Arya murmured, gripping the key of the wind tightly. It was her only guide to finding the Shard of Light. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward. The moment she moved, the mist thickened. The trees began to shift, their vines slithering like serpents.
Arya.
She froze. Madame Celine's voice echoed softly. What are you doing here? Arya turned and gasped. Madame Celine was standing before her, her expression as stern as ever. How did you get here? Arya asked, confused. I followed you to help, Madame Celine said. You must leave this place before it's too late. Don't listen. That's not her. A second voice rang out, Selena's voice. Arya turned in the opposite direction. Selena's ghostly figure appeared, looking at her with concern.
Arya, beware.
The forest creates illusions to deceive travelers. Arya looked back at Madame Celine. Something was wrong. Her shadow stretched unnaturally long. Who are you? Arya demanded, stepping back. Madame Celine narrowed her eyes, then smirked. Her body darkened and twisted into a shadowy figure. I am the guardian of this forest, and you must choose your path. The shadow raised its hand. Two images appeared before Arya. The first, a golden-lit path leading to a magical bridge. It seemed safe, an easy way out of the forest. The second, a dark, crumbling ruin. Inside, a glowing glass box rested on a pedestal, the Shard of Light. If you choose the first path, you will return home safely, the shadow said. If you choose the second, you will have to face me. Arya clenched her fists. Another test. She knew the first path was likely a trap. The magic of the illusionary forest often lured travelers into choosing what seemed safe, but wasn't real. But she didn't hesitate. She had a mission to complete. I choose the second path. The shadow laughed darkly before lunging at her. Arya raised her wand as a monstrous shadow beast emerged. Its massive, shifting form loomed over her, its glowing red eyes filled with menace. You are brave, it growled. But I will not let you pass easily. The beast lunged forward. Arya cast a protection spell, but the force of the attack nearly knocked her over. Nemo, she called as her owl flapped above, circling protectively. She had to find a way to defeat it, but how? Then she remembered Selena's words. The shard of light could reflect dark magic. She dodged another attack and sprinted toward the glass box. The shadow beast roared, trying to stop her, but she reached out, grabbed the shard, and held it high. Reflect the darkness back. The shard pulsed with radiant energy. As its light struck the shadow beast, it let out a deafening scream. Its body cracked and shattered into mist, disappearing into the void. The forest grew silent. The mist began to fade. Birds and insects started to chirp again, as if the forest was waking from a long nightmare. Arya let out a deep breath. She had done it. She looked at the shard of light in her hand. This was the key to breaking Eldorf's curse. With a determined smile, she turned to Nemo and said, "It's time to return and save Eldorf." As Arya returned to Eldorf, holding the shard of light, the city remained eerily silent. The people were still trapped in stone. A cold wind howled through the empty streets, reminding her that danger still lurked ahead. In the center of the city, the Tower of Night loomed over everything, its peak reaching into the darkened sky. A sinister magic pulsed from its core. The shadow sorcerer was still there. "I'm ready," Arya declared, gripping the shard of light tightly as she stepped forward. Inside the tower, darkness swallowed everything. Her footsteps echoed as she climbed the spiral staircase. At the top, a figure in a black cloak stood waiting. His eyes burned like crimson fire. "So, you finally arrived." His voice was cold as ice. Arya knew immediately. This was the shadow sorcerer, the one responsible for Eldorf's curse. "I will stop you," Arya shouted, raising her wand. The shadow sorcerer chuckled. "A mere child thinks she can defeat me?" Suddenly, the shadows around him shifted, forming living creatures. They lunged toward Arya. Arya cast a barrier of blue light, shielding herself from the attack. But the sorcerer's magic was powerful. The shadows began tearing through her defenses. "I have to use the shard of light," she realized, quickly pulling it from her satchel. The moment she held it high, a golden light burst forth, reflecting the sorcerer's magic back at him. "What?" "Impossible," he recoiled, as his own darkness began consuming him. "You forgot something,"
Arya shouted.
"Dark magic cannot withstand pure light." The shadow sorcerer screamed as the shard of light unleashed a final burst of magic, shattering his darkness forever. Light flooded through the city. The dark fog over Eldorf dissolved into nothing. One by one, the people turned from stone back into human form. Arya collapsed to her knees, breathing heavily. But she knew she had won. Cheers erupted from the city. They were free. Madame Celine and Selena, the guardian witch, appeared before her. Their eyes shone with pride. "You have done well, Arya," Selena said. "You are a true witch now." Madame Celine nodded. "From this day forward, you are no longer an apprentice, but a full-fledged witch." Arya beamed with joy. She had finally proven herself. And thus began the legend of the Witch of Light, the savior of the magical realm.